Morning.
Good to see you guys here today. I did bring a songbook up with me, but I promise I'm not going to lead singing. But Nathan does not know this. I have a video to show at the end. So Nathan, after I get done, wait a second. I do have a video to show, I hope. I don't know if Remington's looking at me, but he'll figure it out. We have a video to show at the end recapping what's happened this year, and so I hope you guys enjoy that. But as we get ready, as we wrap up what's been happening this last year and we get ready to look into the new year, we just call this one, it's not a series, it's just a one-off sermon we're calling Looking Back, Looking Forward. It's just the idea here is that we're going to spend some time looking at what God has blessed us with and being grateful for that. The last 2 years of my life have been challenging. I don't know about for you guys. The last 2 years have been new. They've been challenging, and they've been different for many of us. Almost all of us have had to come to grips with some new realities. Some things in our lives have changed. And the world around us has made huge changes. Technological advancements have happened. Look at our space race. It's completely different than it was before the 2 years ago. We've had technological advancements. We've had scientific advancements in the last 2 years that are unheard of. We've had a lot of political changes around the world, here in America as well. And that's just to name a few. But those aren't really the only changes that we've had to go through. The church has had to go through a lot of changes itself. And we as the church community have had to go through a lot of changes. The way we do worship has changed. The way we do discipleship has definitely changed. And the way that we share and we celebrate Christ together as a community has changed. But even that's not the end of the story, right? Other things have changed as well. And we, in the last year at least, have definitely here at Southeast been changed by the grace of God. Sometimes we've been changed because it's been challenging things that we've had to go through, and sometimes in joyful ways. And remembering these changes empower us to move into our future, into this next year, this year of 2022, and to look at this and give God glory for what He's given us. Because God has given us all sorts of things. He's given us the joyful task, more importantly, though, of actively remembering what He has done with us and through us. And it's a chance for us to celebrate, give thanks, and teach the next generation. I think of our friends that have moved away this year and our most recent ones that will be moving away this next week. As we celebrate them off, it's our opportunity to remember all the things that they were part of here, all the things that they were a part of at Southeast and how they've encouraged each of us and taught some of us and been with us for so long. And it's important that we relish those moments and celebrate those moments to teach the next generation of those that came before them. So with all this in mind, let's keep this in our minds today as we enter into our scripture reading of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verses 1 through 7. Deuteronomy chapter 11, starting in verse 1, it says, "You shall therefore love the Lord your God and keep His charge, His statutes, His rules, and His commandments always. And consider today, since I am not speaking to your children who have not known or seen it, consider the discipline of the Lord your God, His greatness, His mighty hand, and His outstretched arm, His signs and His deeds that He did in Egypt to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and to all his land, and what He did to the army of Egypt, to their horses and to their chariots, how He made the water of the Red Sea flow over them as they pursued after you, and how the Lord has destroyed them to this day, and what He did to you in the wilderness until you came to this place, and what He did to Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, sons of Reuben, how the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them up with their households, their tents, and every living thing that followed them in the midst of all Israel. For your eyes have seen all the great works of the Lord that he did. See, in Deuteronomy, there's several themes that carry on throughout Deuteronomy, and one of the ones that I like is this word that's used there. It's called yada. My mom would always say whenever we were rambling on, yada, 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 yada. But that's not the same word. The Hebrew word yada shows up in Deuteronomy 43 times. And the translation of the word is consider. It means to consider. And often it's used as a command for God's people to reflect upon and teach and remember and know what God has done. God's instructions demonstrate that this is a command to be taken seriously. It's just as serious as a command not to commit murder, not to commit adultery. It's just as serious as those commands to consider and reflect on. They are to place this knowledge not only in their hearts and souls, but on their hands and in front of their eyes and on their gates and doorsteps. They're to teach their children by talking of these things when they sit at home, and when they get up, and when they walk. Don't take my words, though. Let's go back to Deuteronomy and see what it says. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 18. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 18 says, "You shall therefore lay up these words of mine in your heart and in your soul, and you shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall teach them to your children, talking of them when you are sitting in your house and when you're walking by the way, and when you lie down and when you rise up. You shall write them on the doorsteps of your house and on your gates." See, in other words, God wants us to consider the things that he has done and what he has taught us all the time. Never to stop, to always think about these things. In 1 Samuel, we see the prophet Samuel taking this commandment super seriously, if that's such a word, super seriously. It's of utmost importance to him. You see, when God heard the people's cries of deliverance, Samuel reacts and he has this moment of remembrance. Let's turn over there. 1 Samuel chapter 7. 1 Samuel chapter 7, verse 12. "Then Samuel took a stone and set it up between Mizpah and Shin, and he called its name Ebenezer. For he said, 'Till now the Lord has helped us.'" See, building an altar was a symbol. It was a symbol of worship. It was also an act of a powerful symbol to remind people of what God had done, what God had commanded, and to teach people what it meant. How the people had responded to God, and how God blessed and disciplined them as a result of what had happened. In either case, though, the memory was instructive, not only to that community, but also to the generations that were to follow. We have things that we use as remembrance in our own lives. The one I could think of that we use here is in our songbooks. And it's the song, "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing." And included in its second verse, and I'm just going to read it, I promise I won't sing. The second verse of "Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing," "Here I raise my Ebenezer," right? My monument, my staff, my altar. "Here I raise my Ebenezer. Hither by thy help I've come. And I hope by thy good pleasure safely to arrive at home." These lines express so well the purpose of tangible signs in our own lives of remembering God's teachings and God's work in our lives and in our community. And looking behind at what God has done, we find the courage to hope for an ongoing faithfulness in the future. Almost every conceivable publication out there, a media outlet, whatever it might be, does stuff at the end of the year. the best 100 songs of the year, the top 100 people of the year, the top 100 criminals. Though they don't call them that, I think they call them something else, but the top 100 whatever, politicians maybe, of the year. They do different things like that. And it's a looking back and reflecting on what has happened in the last year. The 100 most critical events that happened in the year, or 100 most critical events. I remember in 2000, we looked at the last century, right? There's always this remembrance and this looking back to see what happened. Why is that important? Well, we always say if we don't remember our history, we're doomed to repeat it. That's part of it. But teaching our history is important as well. For us in the church, sometimes though we get mixed up. We think teaching history starts with like Brady, but it doesn't. It doesn't always start with just Brady. It starts with everybody. We get confused about what it means when we say you have to set up and you have to remember what God has done and you have to teach that. We go, yeah, God has done many wonderful things for me, and but I'm up in years and I don't need to teach anymore. See, what these all point at, what these scriptures are all pointing at, the importance, the altar, if you will, of what we're doing as a community is discipleship. And discipleship never stops. Discipleship is that remembering and that teaching and that encouraging people to go forward and have hope in a future. Sometimes in our own community, we relegate teaching to the paid staff. It's a bad idea. Nathan and I can't handle all that, I promise you. Sometimes we relegate it just to the teachers in the church. It's not a good idea either. And sometimes we relegate it just to the elders or to the deacons. Once again, a bad idea. Because God tells us that we're to remember these things every day when we get up. And we're to teach them to our children every time we get a chance to speak to them. We're supposed to put them on our doorsteps and on our gates so that they will be remembered and so they can be taught. It's not just the children he's talking about. He's talking about those that are young in their relationship with God as well. For they are children as well, and they need to be taught. Sometimes it's us older ones that need to be taught too. And we need to remember what it is he's done for us and why we continue to do it for him. So today, I want to leave you with this video of what Sandra had put together to share with us. And it's all the events and experiences that we've shared together over the last year. I hope we have it. Yeah, okay. It's an opportunity for us to look back and reflect on what's happened here at Southeast this last year and hopefully encourage us as we go into 2022 to share that story so that more people can come into our community and share the future of this church with us. Thank you.